Through achieving discipline, accountability, and learning to be vulnerable, you have the ability to obtain success. Hello and welcome to Bridge Everything. My name is Stefan. I want to spend this first episode talking about the importance and ripple effect of our actions, and then get into the importance and need for a healthy relationship between comfort and discomfort. Then we'll conclude by talking about privilege and the fact that we all have privileges that we should take full advantage of, while also making sure that we strengthen the weaknesses that our privileges give us. So we all have privileges, and this is good, and there's benefits to it, but there's also negatives that our privileges are equipped with, and how do we find balance between that. So just getting right into it with human action, I want to talk about it in a way that may seem a little overwhelming, but if you stick through it, I think ultimately you'll see it as a tool of empowerment, not only for yourself, but for your family, your community, and ultimately the world. And I think it'll also just show us how connected we truly are, and not just the responsibility you have, but the power you have to change your reality or the world in a drastic way, from making intentional decisions, intentional actions on a regular basis, and how life-changing that could be for you and your family. So here we are in this season of change, with it being election season, and what you typically see is everyone get overworked, extremely emotional and passionate about the vote and their candidate, undermining that the real vote, the most important vote, is human action, the actions we make on a daily basis. For anyone who chooses to vote, definitely cast your vote, but most people vote in a reactive way, and action is the proactive vote. So we have the ability to change the world, not every 4 years, but every single day through our actions. It's not beneficial, or it doesn't make much of a change in the ecosystem if you're voting for any candidate, any elected official, if you continue to undermine your health, whether physical, mental, if you continue to not be kind to your neighbors or people in your community at the grocery store, if you continue to not take care of yourself and your family. We have the opportunity to vote every single day through our actions, and leaders take notice of how we're voting every single day, and they represent what it is we're asking for. And so there's been a decline of the leaders that we've put in power over the last few years, and I would argue that the reason that decline has existed is because we've made poor decisions on a daily basis, from the way we interact with each other online to the health decline, the mental health crisis going on, depression is skyrocketing, people are not having healthy relationships with their partners and with their kids. And there's been a huge investment in our daily actions to prop up rage culture, hate, the things we engage in online on social media. We'll choose the negative stories over the positive stories. These are the most important way to vote daily and proactively, and not wait for X amount of years to try to clean up things because you're not satisfied with how they've been going. So when we really break down the concept that every action is a vote, what we can surmise from that is, if we look at something like sugar consumption, my sugar consumption sends a signal to the market, to producers, to entrepreneurs, that this is something that I want more of, and they're going to give me more of that, which is largely why if you go into any supermarket today, it's filled with junk. The things I give my attention to online or even offline, just understand that these things have more of an impact than your vote. Most people just think of themselves as voting every 4 years, but you're really voting every day with where you outsource your attention, your purchases, where you spend your dollars, your privacy rights that you sign away, giving attention to trolls or even engaging in trolling yourself. Acts of violence, and acts of violence aren't always just physical, but they can be acts of violence such as whooping your child instead of having a healthy dialogue or healthy communication with them to explain. All these things enable the larger actions that our systems, institutions, governments participate in. So the more we engage in acts of violence, the more we engage in surveillancing our children or surveillancing our communities, it enables our governments to do the same thing. If we were to, versus on the other hand, if we were to invest in being more loving, to invest in our health, to invest in truth and healthy forms of communication, then it would also challenge our leaders to conduct themselves in the same manner. They're just a reflection of us. And once we understand that we don't just vote every 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, or wherever you are located, but that you vote every single day of your life, then it's hard to point the finger at anyone outside of yourself. You have to look in the mirror, take accountability for your actions, your behaviors. What are you contributing to? What are you enabling? And what impact are your actions rippling throughout the world? Even if you just look at the wars currently going on, at the root of it is really just bad communication, the lack of communication. And how can we complain about that when the majority of us find ourselves engaging in bad communication with our loved ones at home, whether it's blocking someone on social media or blocking someone in your cell phone so they can't get a hold of you instead of expressing your pain to them, to people on X yelling at each other. Everywhere you look, you see bad communication taking place. And so there's really no adult in the room or large group of adults in the room that can hold these governments to be held accountable for participating in poor communication. So again, human behavior is the most important vote. And everywhere you look, media and entertainment, it's all about drama. All we consume and all we are calling for are stories of drama, but not just any kind of drama, but real life drama. Now we need to see celebrities go through real situations. We need to see them suffer. And it's not even just a matter of us needing to get that satisfaction from celebrities, but it's literally all of us online. We are now just exploiting ourselves, and that's a part of our action. That's a part of our vote. If we're willingly exploiting ourselves daily online, then it sends a signal to other people to willingly exploit us, that we invite exploitation. We have the ability just from our actions, the actions we make on a daily basis, to redefine what's normal, redefine the qualities and characteristics that our leaders need to know they need to possess in order to deserve our vote. And that's really the point here, for us to understand our worth, understand our value, and responsibly take full advantage of it. And also just to offer some actionable steps and actions that you could take to responsibly vote daily with your actions and basically opt out of the unconscious behaviors or unconscious actions that I've been talking about. And these are by no means what I'm saying you have to do or need to do. These are just ideas to help further make my point. Ultimately, you make the decisions. I'm not here to influence your decisions or behaviors, but more just to present my observations and more proactive solutions to creating what we want instead of outsourcing what we want to someone interested and empowered. And so again, don't feel bad if you don't want to accept any of these, or if you come up with your own ideas. By all means, again, this is just to better paint the picture I'm trying to make here. So some examples you could take are eating grass-fed meats is a way of voting that you're not interested in the way in which animals are slaughtered and the animal cruelty that is largely practiced in the US and big agriculture, and the impact that that has not only on the world but in our body as we digest these animals that are treated horribly. They produce horrible effects internally in us. There's also prioritizing offline relationships. I'm a huge advocate for technology, as I think it's a human requirement to innovate. But also, we have to focus on offline relationships. Online relationships, in many ways, has contributed to the regression that I'm talking about here today, and reprioritizing your offline relationships and investing in that, pouring into people that are physically sharing space with you, not only lets them know that they're important and you value them, which makes them a much more better version of themselves, but it just creates safer spaces for us. It allows us to continue to have healthy social interactions with one another, because nobody wants to conduct rarely do you see people conduct themselves in the same way that they will online when they're with someone physically face to face. There's just more respect, more grace, more humanity involved in physical interactions than what you would typically see involved online, because we're not trying to get the algorithm on our side, which prioritizes rage. There's healthy communication as a healthy alternative. Having the difficult conversations, being honest, vulnerable, these things, yeah, I mean, I don't think there needs to be too much more said just in how impactful healthy communication can be. But I guess I would also say the more we practice as citizens in healthy communication, the more we feel like we're deserving to demand more from our governments. And if we conduct healthy forms of communication in our homes and, even outside of our homes, we have to hold our leaders, our governments to those same standards. And it makes it a lot easier for us to be judgmental about their childish behavior. We could also choose education over entertainment. Instead of grabbing your phone to scroll through social media, we could grab our phones and listen to an audiobook, listen to a podcast, read an article. We take for granted the wealth of knowledge that we all possess in our phones. I think the point is made by now, but I also just want to talk about it on a more individual level and talk about the way in which we can project pain onto others and how that creates a ripple effect that goes from local to regional to national and finds itself across borders. And for this example, you could use something as simple as road rage, or being an asshole to your barista as you order your coffee in the morning, and the way in which that impacts their day. And because they're impacted in a negative way, the ripple effect of that is that they're going to impact someone else's day in a negative way, and so on and so on and so on and so on. And ultimately, if we find ourselves mindful of this, the way in which we can change not only our individual life, our families, and the energy that's felt in our home, but our community, our cities, our regions, our nation, and across borders likewise. So, I think just being kinder, being more loving, more friendly, participating in better communication, participating in forgiveness, participating in self-care, self-maintenance. These are the actions that we should find ourselves most willing to vote for. That's what I mean when I say vote for yourself. And you need these aren't initially going to be the easiest changes to make in an individual's life. So you're going to need all the energy, all the nutrition, all the support. And how can you possess that energy and what's needed to make this change if you're pouring into an individual that more times than likely is not caring of you or your position, which is the unfortunate political system we currently find ourselves in. So with that, I hope you find yourself empowered and excited to know that the way in which you conduct yourself and the way the actions you take on a daily basis can truly make a big difference in this world, and most certainly in your reality, in your world. And for anyone who maybe was not already understanding the value of your worth, that, in this, hopefully you begin to understand or identify what your worth is, how important your attention is, how important you are, how much power you have to make true change, and also how you can opt out. By opt out, I mean opt out of the servitude that most institutions and a lot of the systems and infrastructure we have, not just in the US, but throughout the world, are really to beat you down, whether intentionally or not, into a state of I need to vote for the next candidate, instead of taking accountability for your own life. Ultimately, you want to bulletproof your life to know that you can not only sustain but thrive no matter who's in office. And with that, I next want to shift into the need for discomfort, really finding the balance of comfort and discomfort, and not only the balance between comfort and discomfort, but really just the balance in everything. So here we are in the 21st century, greatest time in human history to be alive by far. Future looks promising, but as we continue to innovate and advance ourselves, we have to deal with the conundrum of eating too much ice cream. Too much of anything has a negative impact or a negative effect on you. Too much comfort leads to laziness, and laziness leads to health issues. I think we currently find ourselves in a time in which we're so privileged as a society that we are regressing. I know that sounds like a contradiction, seeing how I just said that this is the greatest time to be alive, and it very much is. But most people are struggling with understanding how to hold themselves responsible with this privilege. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And I think absolute comfort kills. We need challenges in order to not only remain alive and well, but thrive. Sitting with good posture, taking fasts, getting in a good quality of steps within a day, vegetables, silence. We need silence. All these things, ice baths, cryotherapy, putting yourself in rooms in which you're the least achieved, or surrounding yourself around people in which you're the least intelligent, having civil conversations with people that you passionately disagree with. All these things force you, challenge you to grow. Following people that get under your skin and balancing out your timelines or feeds on social media. I think we should all work to humanize our enemies and those we disagree from. And these are the things that are typically make us uncomfortable. Even myself, doing this podcast, this is something I've been talking about for years now, literally at least 2 years. This is one of the most uncomfortable things I've done as someone who truly loves and values their privacy. It is a big commitment for me, but I need it. We need to lean into the things that we're procrastinating, or the things that we're fearful of doing, or the things that, are hard. That's the only way to evolve. And my personal belief is that the moment we stop evolving is the moment we start to decline. So, with this, I would just urge anyone listening, if anyone's listening, take the stairs. You wake up, go the first hour or two without coffee, or dare I say, go the day without coffee. Create opportunities to challenge yourself, and it will drastically enhance your ability to deal with hardships, stresses, difficult conversations, embarrassment. It'll build up in you a level of endurance you maybe didn't know you were capable of achieving. And so, yeah, just find ways to challenge yourself to resist or be better, and watch the way in which it impacts your life. Maybe not the best segue, but as I've stated, this is not an easy thing for me that I'm doing here today. So that segue brings me to my final point, which is privilege. In my personal opinion, I feel like we're currently living socially in a day in which we are weaponizing people for their privileges, and we're weaponizing people for their privileges instead of leaning into ours. We all have our privileges, no matter what your religion is, whatever your gender is, whatever your socioeconomic background is, no matter what your education is, no matter what physical attributes you have. We all have privileges, and to attack people for taking advantage of their privileges is really not taking accountability for not taking advantage of your privileges. One of the ways in which I feel like I have such a high, unshakable level of gratitude is from being a African American and overcoming certain hardships in my life, overcoming situations in which I should have not survived. Anything beyond this moment is like a walk in the park. We all have hardships. We all have different struggles. We all have different obstacles that we deal with in life. Identify what those are and how to utilize them, how they shape you. I want everyone to maximize their potential, and the most effective way for them to do that is to utilize their privilege. And in them utilizing their privilege, they become a much more productive individual, and their productivity is a benefit to me, but also the larger ecosystem. Now, with that, it's also important for them to understand that their privileges has blind spots, and for us all to understand what our blind spots are from privileges. You have to, you don't have to, but it would be to your best benefit to learn about other people's privileges, other people's challenges, to have a more well-rounded understanding of everything, everybody. It makes you a more relatable person, more likable, easier to work with, easier to want to work for. It helps you identify trends in society and markets. It helps you just have a better outlook and perspective on life, from understanding different cultures, different socioeconomic backgrounds. All of these things allow you to be a much more effective person. And on the other hand, not understanding these things or not working towards better understanding these things enslaves you to your narrow lens. That's the beauty of travel. It humbles you and inspires you at the same time. It reminds you of what you take for granted on a daily basis. It could be the most basic thing that you have grown accustomed to take for granted, and now not having access to that, or needing to pay for that, or not having, the same level of quality that you're used to, is such a humbling experience. But on the other hand, you also get to expose yourself and experience what's missing, what this country is providing you that you maybe have never had access to. For example, you could say one thing I always feel anytime I go out of the country, I instantly just feel a lot safer. And there's trade-offs to, in many ways, the opportunity cost of that is lost freedom that that country has access to, i.e. guns or freedom of speech. But my point is that travel in general, it's the art of it. If you are fully immersed in it, it humbles you and inspires you, and it forces you to be fully present in the moment, and identify your privileges, but also identify other people's privileges. You have to live in someone else's terms. Furthermore, there's this dehumanization that takes place amongst different sectors of society. When we see someone that maybe is from a certain background, drives a certain car, has a certain amount of wealth or the lack thereof, certain education, and we project onto them whatever our insecurities are. So we think it's somebody that was born into an easy life. We might assume that they deserve less grace or less dignity because they had it easy. And we don't consider that maybe what they had to endure in order to be born to a financially secure family is maybe a broken home, maybe the lack of seeing their parents. And the same thing on poor people. You might assume that just because this person doesn't have money that they aren't deserving of a certain level of respect or aren't educated or aren't informed on something. And that's not the case. So just seeing, not judging people based on what they have or what they don't have, but being sympathetic to them no matter what. No matter what, there's trade-offs. There's things you sacrifice. There's things that you were devoid of. And so sometimes having an umbrella isn't always a benefit. If you grow up poor, there's a lot of value and a lot of beauty in that. Obviously, you have a lack of resources, but the trade-off of that is you typically have a much higher tolerance to stress. You're a lot more resilient, and you can find beauty in simplicity. Even if you think of a workaholic, the workaholic maybe the workaholic maybe has a lot of money, but they sacrifice time. And if they have a family, they're not only sacrificing time for themselves, but they're sacrificing time with their family. And other examples of the downside of privilege, if you think of somebody that's at the top of their field in any industry or profession, they, in order to be at the top of whatever it is they're in, they're guaranteed to not be as knowledgeable in another area or in many areas, and the sacrifices that they had to make in their personal lives in order to achieve that level of success is their trade-off. And so give yourself the grace to live in a state of gratitude. And you can do this by allowing yourself different filters to see what other experiences people are going through. And some are going to be better. That should inspire you. Some are going to be worse, and that'll allow you to find peace in whatever problems you're going through. It's not a way to suppress what you're going through, but it just widens your lens, widens your perspective to understand that, okay, I'm going through this, but it's not the end of the world. There's people going through far worse. And once you understand that, once you understand how privileged you are, once you understand, once you build up the weaknesses that your privilege gave you, it's such a beautiful journey and opportunity, and something that will truly change your life for the better. I hope this all makes sense. Like I said, this is an uncomfortable venture for me. If it doesn't make sense, leave comments, whatever, reach out. I can hope maybe at some point in the future, once I'm more experienced in this, find my voice, I can go over this again. I guess I'll just leave you with things to expect in the future if you made it through this. So this space is really just going to be things that are, in my opinion, unconventional, empowering, A lot of it is going to be focused on things I value. So I look forward to making a difference in this world with you.